The clinking of silverware and the hum of polite laughter filled the long oak dining table as my father stood, raising his glass with a self-satisfied grin. "Tonight," he began, voice booming with pride, "we celebrate our real daughter, the successful one. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin." The room erupted in applause. My mother dabbed her eyes with a napkin, pretending to be emotional. My sister, Emily, gave a modest little smile, basking in the glow of their approval. I sat at the far end, silent, the weight of his words cutting sharper than the crystal knives on the table. "Dad," Emily said, laughing softly, "you don't have to say that." He smirked. "Oh, I do. The world needs to know the difference between ambition and, well, wasted potential." His eyes slid toward me like daggers. Everyone followed his gaze. I could feel the heat of it on my skin, the unspoken judgment, the failure, the disappointment, the one who married below her worth. My husband, Ryan, sat beside me, calm, composed, his hand resting lightly on my knee beneath the table. His tailored suit didn't scream wealth, but his confidence carried a quiet kind of authority that no one in that room recognized yet. Emily leaned forward. What is it you do again?" "Freelancing." A few stifled laughs followed. I forced a smile. "Something like that." She nodded, smug. "Well, we can't all be vice presidents of Parker and Holt, right?" My father chuckled, tapping her glass.
"Exactly.
"You've made this family proud, Emily. You've earned your place." My mother looked at me for a moment, then quickly looked away. That glance, pity mixed with embarrassment, was worse than words. Ryan leaned in, his voice low, calm, dangerous. "You sure you want to sit through this?" I met his eyes and smiled faintly. "Oh, I want to see how far they'll go." The waiter arrived with champagne. Dad lifted his glass again. "To Emily," he declared, "and to the company that made her who she is." Everyone cheered. Except Ryan. Except me. The sound of laughter swirled around like static, dull, meaningless. I could feel the bitterness rising in my chest, the memories flashing back, years of being compared, dismissed, replaced. I'd been the daughter who painted her dreams, who failed once and was never forgiven for it. Emily had always been the golden child. Perfect hair, perfect job, perfect parents' pride. But perfection has a shelf life. Ryan's hand tightened around mine under the table. His lips brushed my ear, barely a whisper. "Time to tell them we bought their company." For a second, I froze. The room blurred. Forks clinked. My father laughed at something Emily said about corporate success. Then I turned to him, my voice steady, almost sweet.
"Dad."
He looked at me mid-sip. Funny thing about Parker and Holt," I said. "It changed ownership last week." The laughter died instantly. He frowned. "What are you talking about?" Ryan leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "She's saying we bought it. Every share. Every asset." The air turned heavy. My sister blinked, confusion flickering into disbelief. "You're lying." Ryan smiled slightly. "You'll find out Monday morning at your board meeting. We'll be there." My father's glass hit the table with a thud. "You what?" I sat back, my pulse calm now. "You said you were proud of your real daughter. You should be careful who you call real, Dad. Turns out, the one you overlooked just signed your paycheck." The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was poetic. Ryan reached for his champagne, his tone casual. To family, no one lifted their glass. But for the first time in my life, I didn't need them to. The next morning, the echo of last night's silence still clung to me like smoke. My phone buzzed nonstop, missed calls from my father, a few unread texts from my sister. Ryan glanced over his coffee mug, expression unreadable. "They'll come," he said quietly. "People like that always do. Pride doesn't let them stay quiet." Right on cue, the front gate camera chimed. My father's black SUV rolled up the driveway, followed by Emily's sleek white coupe. I could already imagine the storm that was about to walk through our front door. Ryan didn't flinch. He simply adjusted his tie, calm and deliberate, as if this was just another business meeting. The doorbell rang once, hard. When I opened the door, my father stood there, red-faced, clutching a stack of papers. "You think this is funny?" he barked. "You walk into my home, humiliate me in front of everyone, and now you're spreading lies?" "Lies?" I asked, stepping aside. "Come in. Let's discuss it calmly." Emily brushed past me, her perfume sharp and expensive. "Dad, don't waste your time. There's no way they bought Parker and Holt. The board would have told me." Ryan leaned against the counter, unbothered. "Actually, they did. Check your email." She scoffed but pulled out her phone anyway. The moment her eyes scanned the screen, the color drained from her face. The subject line read, "Ownership Transfer Notice, Parker and Holt Enterprises." Her voice cracked. This can't be real." "It's very real," Ryan said smoothly. "The previous chairman was retiring. We offered a buyout he couldn't refuse. You'd be surprised how many doors open when you treat people decently." My father turned to me, voice shaking with fury. "You planned this behind my back." I met his gaze. "You made sure I had nothing left to lose, remember? You laughed when my small design startup failed. You said I'd never understand business. So I learned. Quietly. Efficiently." He slammed the folder on the counter. "You think this makes you better than us?" "No," I said, my tone steady. "It makes me free." Emily rounded on me, tears brimming. "You couldn't stand that I finally made them proud. So you had to ruin everything." "Ruin?" I cut her off. "You spent years treating me like your personal punchline. You and Dad built a wall between us the moment success came knocking for you. You didn't want family. You wanted an audience." Ryan stepped forward then, his voice calm but cutting. "For what it's worth, Emily, we didn't buy the company to ruin you. We bought it to rebuild what your father almost destroyed with arrogance and favoritism." My father's jaw tightened. "You don't talk to me like that." Ryan didn't raise his voice. "You've spent your life confusing fear with respect. That ends now." The room went still. I looked at my father, the man who once told me that dreams don't pay bills, that love was weakness, that my worth was tied to how useful I was to him. For the first time, I didn't see power. I saw panic. "Dad," I said quietly, "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to show you what happens when you underestimate someone who refuses to stay small." He stared at me for a long time, eyes flicking between the contract papers and my face. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. Emily followed, but not before whispering, "You'll regret this." When the door slammed shut, the silence felt heavier than before, but this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was clean. Ryan slipped an arm around my waist. "You handled that perfectly." I exhaled slowly, watching their cars disappear down the street. "It's strange," I said, voice trembling just slightly, "how peace doesn't always feel peaceful at first." He smiled. "Give it time. Tomorrow's the board meeting. That's when the Real storm begins." The boardroom buzzed with quiet tension. Glass walls overlooked the city skyline, the morning sun slicing through steel and shadow. The company logo, Parker and Holt, gleamed on the far wall, but today it no longer belonged to my father or sister. Ryan and I walked in together, hand in hand. The board members, all in crisp suits, turned toward us with cautious curiosity. Some smiled politely. Others avoided eye contact. They'd already received the official notice. Ownership had changed hands. At the end of the long mahogany table sat my father and Emily. He looked furious. She looked desperate. Both were clinging to the illusion of control. Ryan broke the silence first. "Good morning, everyone. As of last Friday, my wife and I are the majority shareholders of Parker and Holt. We appreciate your time." Emily slammed her pen down. "You can't just waltz in here and act like you own the place." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "We don't act like we own it, Emily. We actually do." Laughter rippled quietly through the room. A few executives shifted uncomfortably, hiding smiles. My father's glare could have burned through stone. He rose to his feet, voice booming. You don't understand what you've done. This company isn't a game. It's taken me 30 years to build. I looked at him evenly. 30 years of hiring your favorites, promoting your daughter, and running others into the ground. You built an empire on humiliation, Dad. I'm just here to clean up the mess. He took a step forward, his tone low and venomous. You think you can run a corporation? You couldn't even run your own life. Ryan stood beside me, his tone steady as a blade. She rebuilt her life from nothing. That's more than you've ever done. Emily turned toward the board, voice trembling. You all know me. You know I've kept this company profitable. Are you really going to let some outsider come in and take over everything? The CFO cleared his throat. Actually, Emily, with all due respect, the company's profits have dropped for 3 consecutive quarters. Her face went pale. What? I leaned forward slightly, resting my hands on the table. I know. Because I've been watching from the outside for a long time. You spent money on luxury offices, bonuses for your friends, and left your employees underpaid. That ends today. My father clenched his fists. So what now? You'll fire us? I hesitated, then said calmly, No, I'm not you. The room went quiet again. Even Ryan looked at me, surprised but proud. I don't need to humiliate you, I continued. You'll stay as consultants. For 6 months. Enough time to teach the next generation how not to destroy a company from the inside out. Emily's voice broke. You're doing this to hurt me. No, I said softly. I'm doing this so you finally understand what it feels like to be on the other side of someone's arrogance. My father sank slowly back into his chair, silent now. The weight of what he'd lost seemed to crash down all at once. Ryan addressed the board again, calm and composed. Effective immediately, there will be a restructuring plan. New priorities: fair pay, employee safety, and ethical management. My wife will lead the transition. Applause filled the room, hesitant at first, then stronger, like everyone had been waiting years for this moment. As I looked around, something inside me settled. Not triumph, but peace. For years, I dreamed of proving them wrong. But now that I'd done it, I realized I didn't need their approval. I just needed to finally stop chasing it. When the meeting ended, I walked past my father without a word. He didn't look up. Emily sat frozen, staring at her phone, scrolling through messages from coworkers who'd already shifted their loyalty. Ryan opened the door for me. You okay? He asked. I smiled faintly. Better than I've ever been. We stepped into the sunlight. For once, it didn't feel harsh. It felt earned. 2 weeks later, the headlines were everywhere. New leadership at Parker and Holt promises reform. Female owner brings humanity back to business. Reporters called non-stop. Investors returned. Employees smiled again in the hallways. But success doesn't silence jealousy. It amplifies it. That night, as the city lights blinked beyond our penthouse window, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, until I heard the voice. Congratulations, sis, Emily said, the words dripping with bitterness. You really think they love you? The board, the staff, the media? You'll fall just like before. And when you do, I'll be there to remind everyone who the real heir is. I sighed softly. You're exhausting yourself, Emily. Try enjoying peace for once. You took my life, she hissed. My position, my respect. No, I interrupted, calm but firm. You lost them. All I did was stop pretending you deserve them. She hung up. Ryan looked up from his laptop. Trouble. Just old ghosts trying to stay relevant. I murmured, placing my phone face down. But I should have known Emily wasn't done. The next morning, my assistant burst into my office, pale. Ma'am, you need to see this. She handed me a tablet. A video played, a false news clip accusing me of fraud, claiming the buyout was illegal. It was a lie, carefully edited, and spread across every major social platform. Ryan entered moments later, jaw tight. She did it. I felt my pulse steady, not from panic, but from resolve. Then we'll handle it the right way. By noon, I called an emergency press conference. Cameras flashed as I walked in, head high, voice calm. False narratives spread fast when truth threatens fragile egos. I began. But facts move louder than rumors. I displayed proof of every transaction, every legal clearance, every signed agreement. The audience watched as the truth unfolded live. Documents, timestamps, and even a clip of the former chairman himself saying, "It was her integrity that convinced me to sell." Reporters murmured. Cameras clicked like thunder. And then, right in the back of the crowd, I saw her, Emily, in sunglasses and a trembling jaw. I didn't flinch. Family can be complicated, I said, letting the words hang in the air. But family also teaches us the cost of pride. This company isn't about revenge. It's about rebuilding something honest. The room erupted in applause. Emily turned and slipped out before the cameras caught her face. Afterward, when I stepped outside, the air felt lighter. Ryan met me on the steps, his smile quiet but full. "You didn't just win," he said. "You transformed." I looked up at the skyline, the same city that once chewed me up and laughed at my failure. "Funny," I whispered. "I used to think success meant beating them. Now I realize it means never becoming them." That evening, as we sat on the balcony, Ryan handed me a small velvet box. Inside wasn't jewelry, it was a key. "A new building," he said. "For your own company. One that carries your name. You've earned that." My chest tightened. Not from pride, but from something softer. "And what about Parker and Holt?" He smiled. "You saved it. Now, let it stand on its own. You don't need their shadow anymore." For a long moment, I looked out over the city, 1,000 windows glowing against the night. Each one reminded me of a lesson learned the hard way, that silence can be power, kindness can be sharper than revenge, and walking away can be the loudest victory of all. I turned to Ryan, my voice steady, full of quiet strength. "Let's build something better, something that never forgets where it came from." He nodded. "Together." The city lights flickered below as the wind shifted. Gentle, clean, final. And for the first time in years, I felt completely free.
The room was filled with clinking glasses, expensive perfume, fake laughter, and not a single person I could genuinely call family. I stood near the cake, a cheap-looking two-tier mess with plastic frosting flowers. It had my name on it, Natalie, but no trace of love, just decoration for appearance. My mother had gone overboard pretending this whole birthday bash was her idea. It wasn't. She didn't even remember the date last year. 22 already. Uncle Mike grinned, his breath reeking of whiskey. "Getting old, Nat. Got a real job yet or still pretending to be a writer?" My jaw clenched. I smiled thinly. "Still pretending. Just like you're pretending you still have hair." His laughter barked out. "You got your mother's sharp mouth." Mom, standing nearby in a tight beige dress and diamond earrings she never could have afforded, shot me a glare. "Be polite. This party's not just about you, you know. Your grandfather is here." I bit my tongue. Grandpa Elias, the only reason anyone in this room behaved. The only person who ever saw me, really saw me, not as a failure, not as someone who owed them something, but as family. He entered the room exactly like he always did. Quietly, yet every head turned. The room shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even my father, who never bowed to anyone, stood straighter. Grandpa Elias didn't do loud. He didn't need to. His silence alone made people sweat. He walked toward me slowly, with that unreadable smile of his. "Natalie," he said, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." "Thank you, Grandpa." My voice cracked slightly. Then he leaned in, voice soft. "Is the apartment comfortable?" My head tilted. "What apartment?" Dead silence. The music still played in the background, soft jazz, but it felt like it had faded miles away. My mom's glass trembled in her hand. Dad shifted awkwardly, avoiding Grandpa's gaze. He straightened slowly, turning his full attention toward them. "Then where," he asked, "did the money go?" Everyone stopped breathing. My mother opened her mouth, closed it. I, I thought we were waiting, Dad began, eyes darting. You said? I said nothing. Grandpa cut him off. I wired the money 3 months ago. Full down payment. I told you to have her moved in before her birthday. I stared at them, my stomach twisting. 3 months ago? I never heard anything about it, I said, heart pounding. I still live in the basement. It came out more pathetic than I wanted, but it was the truth. Mom stepped forward. She never told us she wanted to move out. She's been unstable lately. Unstable? I repeated, voice sharp. She fights with her sister. She barely talks to us, she continued, her voice high. And she didn't need an apartment. We thought it was better to hold on to the money for now, just in case Grandpa raised one hand. She fell silent like someone yanked the cord on a puppet. I gave you one instruction, he said calmly. Make sure she had her own space. You two promised me she'd get the apartment. And we were going to, Dad said, desperate now. But things got busy and... Don't, Grandpa said, his voice suddenly dangerous. Insult my intelligence. A few of the relatives quietly slipped away from the living room, pretending to look interested in the buffet or patio view. I could feel the heat of eyes on us. Grandpa turned to me. Do you want to leave? I blinked. What? He looked at me with eyes that hadn't softened in decades. You shouldn't spend one more night in that house. Mom gasped. Wait, Elias? No, he snapped. I'm done waiting. You all treated her like she's disposable, and now you're about to find out what disposable feels like. And just like that, he pulled out his phone. Grandpa Elias never raised his voice, but when he spoke, the world adjusted its volume. He tapped his phone screen, held it to his ear. David, get the keys ready. I'm bringing her tonight. My mother stepped forward, trembling. Wait, Dad, what are you doing? You can't just... This is a misunderstanding. You misunderstood my patience, he said coldly. Everyone in the room now wore the same face, one of frozen fear. The party wasn't a party anymore. It was a funeral. For the reputation my parents had spent decades crafting. I stood there, stunned. Grandpa, what's going on? He looked me in the eye. I bought you a 2-bedroom apartment in Lakeside Heights, paid up front, full furnishing, security, garden view, private parking. It was yours the moment I wired the money. I felt sick. And they never told me? He turned to my dad. Number. They didn't. Dad's face was red now. We were going to surprise her. With what? Grandpa's voice cracked like a whip. The apartment she never saw? The money you spent? He let those words hang in the air like a guillotine. My heart raced. You gave how much? He looked at me slowly. $320,000. A knife in my chest. I asked them to keep the rest for your college loans and emergency fund. Turns out the emergency is now. My mother's hands trembled. We had expenses. Business was slow. Your son lost his job. We were. Stealing from your own daughter, he said simply. The room gasped. A few aunts retreated to the corners, pretending they weren't witnessing this train wreck. My sister, Amanda, snuck behind the kitchen island, her phone clearly recording. Grandpa noticed. You can send that to the lawyer too, Amanda. It'll save time. Dad tried to step in. Okay. Let's all just calm down. It's a family issue. We can work it out. You mean cover it up? Grandpa replied, turning toward the door. Number Natalie, go grab your bag. Assistant. I didn't move. You're not staying here another night, he said, walking straight to me. You'll come with me, and first thing tomorrow morning, you'll see what was supposed to be yours. But my clothes, my stuff. He placed a hand on my back. We'll buy new things. I'm done watching them pretend to be parents. My mother gasped again. You don't mean that. Oh, I mean every word, he said. My hands trembled as I walked toward the door. My parents said nothing. They didn't beg, didn't apologize. They only watched, like losing me wasn't their fear. Being exposed was. I paused at the door. You took my future and called it your backup plan. You buried me under this roof like I was a failure. You made me think I wasn't worth anything. Dad looked away. Mom's lips moved, but no words came. Grandpa opened the front door. You were never the problem, Natalie. They just didn't want to let you become something they couldn't control. The elevator doors closed. And just like that, I left behind my birthday, my family, and every lie they'd told, unaware that this was only the start. because what I'd discover inside that apartment would rip open a secret they were willing to bury me for. The apartment didn't just exist, it gleamed. Tall ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows, soft beige furniture, marble counters, a balcony that overlooked a private courtyard with a fountain that looked like something out of a painting. It didn't feel like a place to live. It felt like a place you had to earn. And somehow, it had always been mine. "Welcome home," Grandpa said, handing me the key card. I clutched it tightly. "I don't understand. Why would they hide this from me?" He exhaled slowly and sat down on the cream sofa, removing his watch like this was just another Tuesday. "Because your parents are drowning in debt. Your father took out 3 lines of credit last year, and your mother defaulted on her boutique loan 2 months ago. I knew they were desperate, but I gave them a chance. I trusted them with your future." My throat tightened. "But they always said they were doing fine." He gave me a look. "Your parents are actors, Natalie, not the professional kind. The survival kind. They perform comfort, success, control. All smoke and mirrors. And you, unfortunately, were their best-kept hostage." It hit me like a cold slap. "I was never going to get the apartment," I whispered. "They were never going to tell me." Grandpa's voice softened. "Number. Because they don't see you as a person. They see you as a wallet." I looked up, shaken. "Not today," he said. "Not anymore." He stood and walked into the hallway, returning moments later with a man in a blazer and glasses. "This is James," Grandpa said. "My attorney." James nodded politely. "Miss Natalie, you'll want to sit down." I did, though my legs were barely working. Grandpa leaned forward. "When your grandmother passed, she left behind a trust, not just for your education, but for you, personally. It was meant to be available the moment you turned 21. I stared at him, but I never got anything. Because your father intercepted it." James opened a file folder and handed me a sheet. I read it, a signature, a forged letter of request. It wasn't my signature, but it was close. "I never signed this." "I know," Grandpa said calmly. "We're filing charges." My breath caught. I didn't want to believe it, that my own son would do this to his daughter. But I had my doubts. So we waited, watched, collected evidence. I stared at the numbers. The trust fund had nearly $850,000 in it, most of it gone. Tears stung my eyes, but not from sadness, fury. "All this time, I thought I was a burden," I said. "They told me I needed to sacrifice, be grateful for whatever they gave me. They said I wasn't mature enough to handle money." James nodded. "Because money would have given you freedom. They couldn't afford that." My chest burned. "What happens now?" Grandpa stood, slowly and deliberately. "Now, we put everything on the table, all of it. We go to war." "But they're my parents. They stopped being your parents the moment they stole your voice, and now you'll speak for yourself." I looked at the folder again. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about everything they'd stolen. My independence, my dignity, my self-worth. And I was getting it all back. By morning, Grandpa had filed motions in court. A financial freeze, legal notices, the beginning of the storm, and the house I grew up in. It would be the first to go. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension, the kind that sat just under the skin and made your heartbeat feel louder than it should. My parents sat on the other side of the room, flanked by their lawyer, a sweaty man in a wrinkled suit who looked like he hadn't expected this case to see daylight. My mother wore her pearls like armor. My father's jaw was locked, arms folded like he was daring the world to challenge his version of reality. But beside me sat Elias Ford, my grandfather, and next to him, James, calm, prepared, relentless. I clutched my copy of the forged letter. The judge looked over her glasses at my parents. "Let's be clear, the trust fund was intended solely for Miss Ford?" "Yes, Your Honor," James replied. "It was structured to activate on her 21st birthday. She's now 22. The funds were accessed months ago, without her consent, by these 2 individuals." My father stood abruptly. "We didn't steal anything. She's our daughter. We were protecting her." "From what?" I cut in, my voice steady for the first time in years. He turned to me, surprised I'd spoken. "From being independent? From knowing the truth? From having options?" His eyes darkened. "You think money makes you mature? Makes you better than us?" I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. I think lying to your child, forging documents, and draining her future makes you a criminal? My mother gasped. Natalie, how can you— No, I snapped. You don't get to call me ungrateful. You sold off my future and smiled in my face while doing it. The judge raised her hand. Let's proceed. James laid out the timeline, the forged document, the spending trail, bank withdrawals, transfers, even credit card statements in my name I'd never seen. They used me like an ATM, and now they were exposed. I want to press charges, I said clearly, standing up. They didn't just steal money. They took years of my life, my confidence, my peace. The room fell silent. Even my father's shoulders dropped, ever so slightly. Grandpa put a hand on my back. That's my girl. The judge leaned back. I'm placing a temporary freeze on the defendant's assets. A full audit will be conducted. Based on preliminary evidence, this case will move forward. Criminal charges are now under consideration. My mother covered her face. My father didn't move. As the bailiff called the recess, they looked smaller than I'd ever seen them. I stepped into the hallway, heart pounding. James followed. You okay? No, I said truthfully. But I will be. Because this wasn't just revenge, it was reclamation. Everything they tried to bury, my voice, my rights, my life, I was digging back up. That night, I sat in my apartment, on my couch, eating dinner with my grandfather, the man who saw me. Do you know why I waited? He asked. Why? Because the best kind of power is the kind you earn, not what you're handed. And today you showed me you've earned every damn piece of your life back. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I never want to be that girl again, the one who begged for crumbs from people who never intended to feed her. You're not, he said. That girl died the day you stood up and said, no more. And in that silence between us, something new was born. A woman. 3 months later, the court settlement came in. And so did the headlines. Heiress of deceit, parents charged after embezzling daughter's inheritance. The news spread like gasoline met with flame. People who once whispered behind my back at family dinners now flooded my inbox with, I had no idea, and if you ever want to talk, messages. I didn't reply to a single one. The judge awarded me full restitution. Every cent taken from the trust had to be returned, including interest. The property they bought with my name was seized. My parents were banned from handling financial accounts tied to any family trust again. My father lost what remained of his business. My mother, the queen of image, vanished from her usual online life. But I didn't. Gloat. I moved. Not physically, spiritually, emotionally, permanently. With Grandpa's help, I launched something new. The Unheard Foundation. Its mission was simple. Support young adults who'd been financially controlled, manipulated, or abused by their own families. We offered legal resources, counseling, grants, real help. And the first person I hired? Amanda, my younger sister. The girl who once recorded the chaos in the living room now helped me change lives. She wasn't innocent. She'd known something was wrong. But she apologized. She meant it. I saw the fear in her eyes, the fear I used to wear. She didn't want to end up like them. I wouldn't let her. The day they tried to contact me again was unforgettable. It started with a knock. James opened the door, surprised. You have visitors. I looked up from my laptop. Who? He stepped aside. My parents stood in the hallway, thinner, older, defeated. Natalie, Mom said softly. Can we talk? Dad said nothing, just stared at the floor. I stood, heart steady. You're not supposed to be here, I said. I know, she whispered, but we lost everything. We have nowhere else. I nodded slowly. You had everything. Me, and you used me like a bank account. We were scared, she choked. Your father was spiraling, the loans, the business. We thought it was temporary, but you made it permanent. My voice cracked. You broke me. Dad looked up. We didn't mean to, but you did. They stood there, expecting, what? Mercy? A hug? Redemption? I stepped back. I forgive you, I said. My mother gasped. But that doesn't mean I want you in my life. Forgiveness isn't permission, and it's not an invitation. Dad's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Grandpa Elias appeared behind me, firm as stone. Leave. Now. They hesitated. I said leave. And they did. That night, I sat with Grandpa on the balcony. The air was crisp. The lights of the city blinked beneath us. "You handled that better than I ever could have," he said. I nodded, tired but whole. "I'm not angry anymore." "Good. Anger fades, but strength doesn't." He raised his glass. "To Natalie Ford," he said. "The girl they underestimated, the woman they'll never forget." I smiled, for real this time. "To taking everything back," I said. And we drank to that.
The clink of glasses and the sharp rise of laughter echoed through the dining hall like a cruel chorus. I stood near the table, clutching a silver tray stacked with steaming dishes, my hands trembling so badly I thought the plates might crash to the floor. "Hannah!" My mother's voice rang out, smooth but cutting. "Don't just stand there. Bring the food around. You can at least handle that, can't you?" The room erupted with muffled snickers. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. Sabrina, my older sister, leaned back in her seat with a glass of wine, her lipstick-perfect smile dripping with superiority. "Careful, everyone," she said loudly. "Hannah's not known for balance. Wouldn't want dinner on your laps." The laughter that followed struck harder than a slap. My throat tightened. I forced one step forward, then another, the weight of the tray pressing into my arms like a punishment. I tried to keep my eyes low, tried to disappear, but the sting of their judgment wrapped around me. "Over here, Hannah," my Aunt Diana called, snapping her fingers like I was some hired help. "Potatoes first? And hurry up, some of us are starving." Heat rushed up my neck. I wanted to scream. To tell them I wasn't their servant, wasn't their charity case, wasn't the shadow they could push around. But my voice caught, locked by years of silence. My hands shook harder. Then, without warning, a hand covered mine. Ethan, my husband. His grip was steady, warm, grounding me in that storm of humiliation. His chair scraped back as he stood, towering in quiet defiance. The room fell into stunned silence. Without looking at them, he slid the tray out of my shaking hands, set it down with deliberate calm, and reached for me. His fingers laced through mine like steel chains, unbreakable. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence was thunder. With a sharp inhale, he pulled me to his side. And then, step by step, he walked us both out of that room, past Sabrina's frozen smirk, past my mother's parted lips, past Diana's shocked stare. The only sound was Ethan's shoes against the hardwood. Each strike a defiance, each stride a refusal to bow. When the door shut behind us, the world outside was cold, the night air biting my skin. My knees wavered, but Ethan didn't let me fall. He held me firm, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with quiet rage. "You don't serve them," he said, voice low, fierce. "Not now. Not ever again." Something inside me cracked open. My shame burned hot, but beneath it, something new sparked, an ember I hadn't felt before. I wasn't sure if it was strength or fury or both. But I knew this. They had humiliated me for the last time, and they would regret underestimating me. The phone lit up that night like a warning flare. First came the call from Sabrina, then my mother, then Diana. One after another, their names burned across the screen, and every time, Ethan hit decline. His face stayed calm, but the tightening of his jaw told me everything. "They don't deserve our words," he muttered, setting the phone face down on the counter. I sat on the couch, knees drawn to my chest, staring at my reflection in the black window. My cheeks were still flushed from earlier, but it wasn't embarrassment anymore. It was heat, a slow fire building in my chest. For years, I had let them mock me. I had let their words define me, the failure, the clumsy one, the girl who never measured up. Tonight had been their masterpiece of cruelty, the grand finale of all the little humiliations they'd piled on me over the years. But Ethan's silence, his simple act of walking me out, it had lit something in me, something they couldn't smother, The phone buzzed again. This time, Ethan turned it toward me. Lorraine's name flashed. My mother. Answer if you want, Ethan said, his voice steady. But remember, you owe them nothing. I hesitated, then pressed decline. My chest rose and fell with a strange, shaky laugh. That felt good, Ethan smirked, sliding an arm around my shoulders. Good, let it sink in. They'll call again. They'll text. They'll try to guilt you. But they can't touch you anymore unless you let them. As if on cue, the texts started pouring in. From Sabrina. Wow. Dramatic exit, much? You embarrassed Mom tonight. Typical. From Lorraine. Hannah, you need to apologize. Family doesn't just storm out like that. From Diana. Ungrateful. After all we've done for you? Serving food is beneath you? Grow up. My hands trembled as I read them, but this time not with fear, with anger. I could almost hear their voices in those words, dripping with contempt, blind to the humiliation they had thrown at me. Ethan leaned in close, his lips brushing my ear. Delete them. Don't give them the satisfaction. But I didn't delete them. Not yet. I stared at those texts, memorizing every word. Because someday soon I wanted to read them again, not as a victim, but as someone who had risen above all of it. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed the party in vivid detail. Sabrina's smirk, my mother's smug tone, Diana's snapping fingers. Every sound, every glance replayed like a film I couldn't switch off. At one point, Ethan rolled over, eyes half open. Still awake? Yes, I whispered. He touched my hand gently. What are you thinking? I stared into the dark. That I've wasted years letting them define me. That I've swallowed every insult, every laugh at my expense. And that tonight? Tonight might have been the last time. Ethan's eyes softened, but his voice carried that quiet steel I had always admired. Then let it be the last time. You don't need to fight them with words. You fight by living better, stronger, smarter. I nodded, my chest tightening. He was right. Screaming at them wouldn't change anything. But showing them I was no longer the weak girl they toyed with? That would odd. The next morning I made coffee and opened my laptop. For once, I didn't avoid my reflection in the screen. Instead, I leaned closer, studying the woman staring back at me. Tired eyes. Bruised pride? But there was something else there too. Resolve, and for the first time in a long time, I whispered to myself, they don't own me anymore. The phone buzzed again. Another text from Sabrina. We're meeting tonight. Don't make this worse by ignoring us. Be there. I stared at it for a long moment. My fingers hovered over the screen. Ethan came into the kitchen, coffee mug in hand. Another demand? Yeah, I said softly, showing him the text. He read it, then gave me a small nod. If you go on your terms, not theirs. I exhaled slowly, a strange calm washing over me. Maybe it was time. Not to apologize, not to beg, but to show them something they'd never expected. Because the girl they mocked last night was gone, and the woman walking into that room tonight would not tremble again. The restaurant buzzed with chatter, silverware clinking against plates, glasses toasting under dim light. My stomach knotted as I walked in, Ethan at my side. Sabrina had chosen the most crowded place in town. Of course she had. She wanted an audience. At the back table, they waited. Sabrina, lounging with her glass of wine. My mother, Lorraine, lips pursed tight. Aunt Diana, leaning forward like a judge about to deliver a sentence. Sabrina spotted us first. She waved, a smirk tugging at her lips. Well, look who finally decided to show up. I slid into the empty chair, Ethan sitting beside me. I kept my shoulders straight, my face calm. My hands didn't shake this time. Lorraine cleared her throat. Hannah, last night was unacceptable. Family doesn't walk out in the middle of dinner. You humiliated us. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. I didn't humiliate anyone, I said evenly. I just refused to play your servant. Diana scoffed, rolling her eyes. You're overreacting. It was a joke. Everyone pitches in sometimes. No, I said, my voice sharper now. It wasn't a joke. It was a display. You wanted me small. You wanted me trembling in front of your friends. And you enjoyed it. Sabrina leaned forward, smirking. Oh, come on. Don't act like a martyr. You've always been sensitive. You can't handle a little teasing, and suddenly you think you're above us. The word above struck me like a dare. I glanced at Ethan, who sat stone-faced, letting me take the lead. My pulse raced, but not from fear, from fire. I've let you tear me down for years, I said, meeting Sabrina's eyes. You called me useless, clumsy, weak, and I believed it. I carried it. But last night, when Ethan took my hand and walked me out, I realized I don't have to carry it anymore. Lorraine's expression hardened. You're being dramatic. We raised you, gave you everything. And this is how you repay us? By turning against family? I laughed under my breath, quiet, bitter. Family protects each other. Family doesn't put one of their own on display like a servant at a dinner table. You've mistaken control for love, Lorraine. And I'm done playing the part you wrote for me. The table went still. Sabrina blinked, caught off guard by the edge in my tone. Diana's smirk faltered. For the first time in years, I wasn't shrinking. I was towering. Sabrina tried to recover, swirling her wine. So what now, Hannah? You walk away and never look back. You think you're better than us because your husband stepped in to save you? Ethan's voice cut through the air, low but commanding. She didn't need saving. She just needed reminding of who she is. The words landed heavy. My chest swelled. I turned back to them. You asked me here tonight to scold me, to drag me back into my place. But I'm not here to apologize. I'm here to tell you, you don't get to decide my worth anymore. Not you, not Sabrina, not anyone. Lorraine's face flushed red, her voice trembling with fury. If you walk away from this family, Hannah, don't expect us to be here when you come crawling back. I leaned in slightly, my voice calm, almost cold. That's the difference. I won't be crawling anywhere. The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the clatter of dishes from nearby tables seemed to fade. For once, they didn't have a comeback. I pushed my chair back and stood, Ethan rising with me. My pulse thundered, but I didn't tremble. My hands were steady. My voice steady. My resolve unshakable. I looked directly at Sabrina, her smirk finally cracked. You wanted me to serve you dinner. Instead, I served you the truth. Ethan took my hand, just like the night before. We walked out, step by step, leaving them behind in their silence. This time, though, it wasn't just an escape. It was a statement, because I knew something they didn't. This was only the beginning. The days that followed were strangely quiet. No more endless calls, no more texts demanding apologies. Sabrina, Lorraine, and Diana had gone silent. But silence wasn't peace, it was strategy. I knew them well enough to recognize it. They weren't done. They were regrouping. Ethan and I carried on with our lives. He worked his shifts at the firm, and I, finally free from the shadow of their voices, threw myself into the design work I'd always been afraid to share. For years, I had sketched clothing in the back of notebooks, too embarrassed to tell anyone. I could already hear Sabrina's cruel laugh in my head. You? A designer? Don't be ridiculous, but now? I didn't care what she thought. I set up a small workspace at home. I sewed late into the night, the hum of the machine filling the silence where their insults used to live. And for the first time, I felt alive. One afternoon, Ethan came home early. He found me surrounded by fabric scraps and half-finished pieces. He leaned on the doorway, smiling softly. You look different, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Different how? Like a woman who stopped waiting for permission. His words sank deep. He was right. Weeks turned into months. My little sketches grew into finished garments. A friend convinced me to post photos online. Then a boutique owner in the city reached out. Then 2 more. Before I knew it, what had once been a secret hobby was becoming something real. The night of the boutique launch, I stood in front of a mirror in one of my own designs, nerves rattling but pride steady. Ethan adjusted his tie and gave my hand a squeeze. This is your night, he whispered. When we walked into the boutique, I froze. They were there, Sabrina, Lorraine, and Diana. Standing near the entrance, dressed to the nines, eyes wide as they took in the banners with my name printed across them, Hannah Whitmore Designs. My breath caught, but Ethan's grip on my hand steadied me. "Let them see," he murmured. The boutique was buzzing. Fashion writers, local buyers, even a few influencers snapping photos. And there I was, the woman they had forced to carry trays at a party, now standing in the center of a room filled with people celebrating me. Lorraine was the first to speak, her voice cutting through the noise. "Hannah, this is yours?" I met her gaze, calm but firm. "Yes, mine." Sabrina's smile wavered, her words dripping with disbelief. "Since when do you do this?" "Since the day I stopped listening to you," I said evenly. Her face paled, and for once she didn't have a comeback. Diana forced a laugh, trying to regain ground. "Well, I suppose all those hours serving food taught you something about presentation." I tilted my head, giving her the faintest smile. "No. What taught me was walking away from people who only wanted me small." The weight of my words lingered, not just for them, but for everyone around us who had overheard. For the first time in my life, I didn't shrink under their eyes. I stood taller. The rest of the night was a blur of congratulations, handshakes, and orders placed. Ethan stayed close, proud but quiet, letting me shine. Later, when the boutique finally cleared, Sabrina approached again, her tone softer, almost desperate. "Hannah, maybe we should talk. We're still family." I looked at her for a long moment, then shook my head. "Family is more than blood. Family is who stands beside you when everyone else tries to break you. And I already have that." I glanced at Ethan, his steady presence by my side. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. I walked away, hand in Ethan's, my heart lighter than it had been in years. That night, as we drove home under the glow of city lights, I leaned my head against his shoulder. "Do you think they'll ever change?" I whispered. Ethan's hand tightened around mine. "Maybe, maybe not. But it doesn't matter anymore. You've changed. That's what counts." I closed my eyes, the weight of his words wrapping around me. He was right, because the real revenge wasn't their shame. It was my freedom, and I had finally claimed it.
I walked into the lavish glass doors of my own high-end luxury store, Valencia and Company, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anticipation. Dressed in a plain blouse and slacks, worlds apart from the designer gowns I usually wore, I looked like just another hopeful retail associate in need of a job. Nobody could recognize me. Nobody would ever suspect that I, Vanessa Langford, the billionaire CEO of Valencia and Company, was about to walk into my own empire undercover.
Why?
Because I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. For months, whispers had reached my ears, complaints from customers about rude staff, unfair treatment, and employees who judged shoppers based on appearances. I couldn't let that happen under my leadership. I needed to see it firsthand. I approached the hiring manager, a woman named Lillian, who scanned me from head to toe with barely concealed disdain. She arched a thin, perfectly plucked brow. "You have sales experience?" I gave her a polite nod. "A few years in retail." That wasn't a lie. I had worked as a sales associate back when I was building my company from scratch. She scoffed, flipping through my fake resume as though it was beneath her.
"Fine.
"We're desperate for help, so don't screw it up." The way she spoke made my skin prickle, but I held back, forcing a grateful smile. "Thank you. I won't disappoint you." I had no idea just how much disappointment I was about to uncover. My first day on the sales floor was an eye-opener. The store was bustling with well-dressed customers, the scent of expensive perfume and polished leather filling the air. The other sales associates, all in their sleek designer uniforms, barely acknowledged me. It didn't take long for me to realize the pecking order. The employees treated well-dressed customers like royalty, practically tripping over themselves to serve them. But anyone who looked even remotely modest? Ignored. Or worse, mistreated. A woman walked in, wearing simple clothes but with a kind face. The moment she stepped near the jewelry section, a senior saleswoman, Claudia, rolled her eyes. "I'll handle this," she muttered, striding over with a fake smile. But instead of helping, she sneered, "That's a very expensive collection, ma'am. Are you sure you're in the right stores?" The woman looked hurt, then quietly left. I clenched my fists. This is what had been happening. This is how they treated potential customers? But I didn't have time to dwell on it before the true nightmare began, when they started targeting me. I was assigned to the least desirable sections, the back corners of the store, where foot traffic was low. "Just stay out of the way," Claudia snapped at me. "You're not exactly top-tier material." I bit my tongue. If only she knew who I really was. The mistreatment escalated quickly. The senior associates ganged up on me, handing me the worst tasks, cleaning mirrors, organizing stock, even scrubbing the floor when customers weren't around. At lunch, I tried to sit with the group, but they fell silent, exchanging smug looks before one of them sneered, "This table's for senior associates only. Newbies eat over there." I wasn't just being treated as an outsider. I was being humiliated. And that's when I made my decision. I had come here to observe.
But now?
I was going to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. One evening, a woman walked in, late 50s, dressed in plain clothes, but with an air of quiet elegance. She hesitated near the glass cases of diamond necklaces. Claudia smirked. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Yes, I'd like to see that piece." The woman pointed to an exquisite emerald pendant. Claudia snorted. "That's $120,000. Perhaps I can show you something more affordable." The woman blinked, her smile faltering. "I can afford it, right?" Claudia laughed, exchanging a knowing glance with another associate. "Maybe next time, sweetheart." I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped forward, my voice calm but firm. "I'll assist the customer." Claudia scoffed. "You?
Please.
Do you even know what customer service means?" Ignoring her, I turned to the woman and said warmly, "Let's take a closer look at that necklace." I reached into the case and placed the pendant in her hands. Tears welled in the woman's eyes. "It's beautiful." I smiled. "It's a timeless piece, and it would look stunning on you." Claudia laughed, rolling her eyes. "Ugh, pathetic." The woman's lips trembled, but then, without a word, she pulled out a black Amex card and set it on the counter. The room went silent. I smirked as I rang up the purchase, watching the blood drain from Claudia's face. "Would you like that gift wrapped, ma'am?" As I handed the woman her bag, she gave me a knowing look. "Thank you, dear." It's rare to find kindness in places like this. She turned and left, leaving Claudia standing there, pale and humiliated. That was it. The employees in this store had shown their true colors. And now it was time for me to show mine. The moment that woman left the store, I knew this was my moment. I had seen enough. I had endured enough.
And now?
They were about to see who they had really been messing with. Claudia was still standing there, her mouth slightly open, her face drained of color. The other employees were staring, whispering among themselves. Nobody had expected that woman to drop $120,000 in a blink. And certainly, nobody expected me to be the one to make the sale. I walked past Claudia, feeling the tension in the air like electricity. She suddenly grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "You got lucky," she hissed. "One sale doesn't make you important here." I slowly turned my head, fixing her with an expression so sharp it could cut glass.
"Oh, sweetheart."
If only you knew. But I wasn't revealing my identity yet. Not just yet. No, first, I wanted to watch them crumble. That night, I made a call. "Ready?" came the voice on the other end. I smirked. "Oh, I'm beyond ready." The next morning, the store was packed. But this time, I had brought guests. Several of my real high-profile clients, millionaires, CEOs, celebrities, walked in, dressed down. Not a single designer label in sight. The game had begun. I watched, arms crossed, as the sales team, the same people who had sneered at me, bullied me, treated me like dirt, immediately dismissed them. A woman in simple jeans and a sweater asked about a rare sapphire bracelet. "You can't afford that," one associate muttered under his breath. A man in a worn-out leather jacket asked about the custom suit collection. Lillian, the hiring manager who barely gave me the time of day, laughed in his face. "Sir, this isn't a thrift store," she sneered. Oh, I was boiling. These people, my employees, were out here treating potential clients like trash just because they didn't look rich enough. I let them dig their own graves. Then I stepped forward.
And dropped the bomb.
I clapped my hands together, the sound ringing through the store. The employees turned confused. "Oh, don't stop now," I said, voice dripping with mock sweetness. "I'd love to hear more about how you think these unimportant customers don't belong in my store." Silence. Stunned, horrified silence. Claudia's face twisted. "W, what are you talking about?" I exhaled slowly, then reached up and unclipped my name tag. The fake one. Then I pulled out my real one, the one with my full name in gold lettering. Vanessa Langford, owner and CEO of Valencia and Company. Gasps rippled through the store. I let the weight of it sink in. Let them feel the slow, creeping horror of realization. "Surprise," I said coolly. "You've all been working under your boss this entire time." Lillian's face turned white. Claudia actually staggered backward. I took a step forward, the power shift sending a shudder through the air. "And let me tell you something," I continued, my voice deadly quiet. "I have never been more disgusted with my own employees than I am right now." The room was dead silent. I let my gaze slowly sweep across the room, locking eyes with each of them, watching them squirm. "You," I pointed at Claudia, "treating customers like they're beneath you? Laughing at them? You are a disgrace to customer service." I turned to Lillian.
And you.
"Judging applicants based on their clothes instead of their skills? I bet you thought you were better than me when I walked in, huh?" She flinched, but I wasn't done. I gestured toward the guests, the same poor-looking customers they had ignored. "These people," I said, my tone turning sharp, "they're millionaires, celebrities, CEOs. Every single one of them could have bought this store twice over." Horror dawned on their faces. The man in the leather jacket? A tech billionaire. The woman in jeans? A world-renowned actress. Each of them had been dismissed, mistreated.
And now?
The employees who had done it were drowning in shame. I crossed my arms. "I have just one question for all of you." Dead silence. I smiled. "How does it feel?" It was chaos. Claudia begged for forgiveness. "I didn't know. Please, I was just..." I held up a hand. "Stop." She went quiet immediately. Then I turned to all of them. "You don't get a second chance," I said firmly. "All of you? Fired." Panic erupted. "Please, Vanessa. I have a family." Lillian pleaded. I narrowed my eyes. "Oh? You mean like the families you mocked for not being rich enough to shop here?" She paled.
No.
I wasn't forgiving this. Security arrived within minutes. The entire floor watched as my disgraced employees were escorted out of the building, their faces burning with humiliation. And as they left, I stepped up to the register and turned to my guests, the ones they had insulted. With that out of the way, I said warmly, "How about I personally help you find whatever you need today?" A pause. Then applause. The guests, the real, deserving customers, smiled at me, appreciation in their eyes. Justice had been served. And I had my store back. The next morning, I walked into Valencia and Company as its rightful owner, not a lowly sales associate. The air was crisp with the scent of fresh flowers that had been delivered to the boutique. The employees, the new ones I had carefully selected, greeted me warmly. But there was still one thing left unfinished. The aftermath of the firings. The media had exploded with the story. Some news outlets praised me for standing up for fairness. Others called me ruthless for publicly humiliating my own staff. And, of course, my former employees were bitter. Lillian, Claudia, and the others had run to social media, painting themselves as the victims. They claimed I had set them up, that I had been unfair and manipulative. Lillian had even given an interview, tears streaming down her face. "I was just doing my job. I never meant to hurt anyone." Claudia sneered on camera, She's just another spoiled billionaire who doesn't understand real struggles. I smirked as I watched the footage. Oh, ladies. You really don't know when to stop, do you? But I wasn't going to waste my time responding to them. No, I had bigger plans. A week later, I stepped onto a national television stage for an exclusive interview. The host leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Vanessa, some people say you were too harsh. That firing them all was an extreme reaction.
What do you say to that?
I tilted my head, giving a calm smile. I say, watch the footage. And right on cue, the giant screen behind me flickered to life. Security camera footage from inside the store. Raw, unedited evidence. Lillian laughing at a man because of his clothes. Claudia sneering at an elderly woman, telling her she wasn't rich enough to shop here. The employees openly mocking customers behind their backs. The audience gasped. The interviewer's jaw tightened. I folded my hands in my lap, perfectly composed. I don't fire people for no reason, I said smoothly. I fire them for mistreating others. And if anyone thinks I was too harsh, I smiled, eyes glinting. Then I invite them to watch this and tell me if they'd want people like that representing their business.
Boom.
The backlash flipped overnight. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain. I was the CEO who refused to let discrimination and cruelty poison my brand. As for my former employees, they went silent. But of course, some people just can't take accountability. A month later, I received legal papers. Lillian and Claudia were suing me. They accused me of wrongful termination and intentional emotional distress. I burst out laughing. Oh, this is going to be fun, I muttered. The trial was public. The moment it started, their lawyer tried to paint me as a cold-hearted, privileged tyrant who set them up. But my lawyer? Oh, he tore them apart. One by one, the customers they had mistreated took the stand. The elderly woman who had been laughed at. The billionaire in disguise. The countless shoppers who had witnessed their cruelty firsthand. By the end of it, the judge looked disgusted. Case dismissed. And Lillian and Claudia?
Broke.
Jobless. And publicly humiliated once again. I had won. But I wasn't done. Firing them wasn't enough. I wanted to make sure that every single person who walked into my store felt respected. So I created a new customer-first initiative. Personalized service. Special training for every employee. Secret shoppers. I even started a philanthropy project, funding small businesses run by hardworking, underprivileged women who had been judged just like that elderly customer had been. And the response? Massive. Valencia and Company wasn't just a store anymore. It was a movement. Sales skyrocketed. Customers loved the new environment. And best of all, the employees I hired were genuine, kind, and hardworking, the kind of people who deserved to be there. Oh, but what about Claudia and Lillian? Did they think I was done with them?
No.
I didn't need to destroy them myself. They did that all on their own. Lillian, desperate for work, tried applying at another luxury store. They recognized her immediately. Rejected. She tried applying at mid-tier brands. Rejected. She even tried opening a TikTok to gain sympathy. But all the comments were people calling her out. You deserved it. Karma came for you. Maybe if you treated people better, you'd still have a job. Her life was in ruins. And Claudia? She ended up working in a cheap retail store, making minimum wage. I went shopping there just once. And the look on her face when she saw me, standing there as the customer now? Priceless. I stood in Valencia and Company, watching as my new employees treated every customer with kindness. The store was thriving. Better than ever. I had cleaned house. I had rebuilt my brand. And I had ensured that no one would ever feel unwelcome in my store again. As I walked through the showroom, a young girl approached me. She looked nervous. Ms. Langford. I smiled. Yes. I just wanted to say thank you. I used to be too scared to come in here. I thought I'd be judged. But now, she smiled brightly. I feel like I actually belong. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. This was what power was meant for. I patted her shoulder and smiled. You always belong here. And with that, I walked away. Not just as a CEO, but as a woman who had won the ultimate battle, not just against my enemies, but for the people who deserved better.